She caught her with both hands. No hesitation, no calculation, just the instinct of a woman who saw something falling and moved before her mind had finished forming the thought. The elderly woman's heel had caught the edge of the marble step. The third one from the bottom of the grand Vesper Group lobby staircase. The one with the slight lip that the architect had thought was elegant, and the facilities team had flagged twice as a hazard and nobody had fixed, because nobody important had ever fallen on it. Until now. Evelyn Okafor had been on her way to collect a documents package from the front desk. First day. Name badge still stiff. Heels slightly too high for a 12-hour shift, but chosen because first impressions mattered and she had learned, in 29 years of being a Nigerian woman in rooms that hadn't expected her, that the margins were smaller for her than for most. She caught the woman at the waist and took her weight fully, the impact jarring up her arms, her shoulder compensating, her body doing the math of the fall before she did. They held there for a moment, both breathing. Then the woman made a sound. Not pain, fear. The specific childhood sound of someone who had been frightened at a cellular level and needed immediately to be told they were safe. "I have you," Evelyn said. "I have you, you're all right." She guided her to the bottom step, sat beside her. The woman was trembling, hands first, then her whole frame, the way fear moved through people who had been still for too long and were now releasing it. "Breathe," Evelyn said. "Just breathe with me, look at me, yes, like that." The woman looked at her. She was perhaps 70. Elegant in a fragile way, silk blouse, pearl earrings, the careful dress of someone whose dignity was a daily practice. Her eyes were dark and frightened, and as the breathing slowed, deeply grateful. "What's your name?" Evelyn said. "Youngsuk," the woman said, then softly, "Madam Kang." Evelyn didn't know the name then, she would later. "Madam Kang," she said, "I'm Evelyn, are you hurt anywhere?" "My wrist," the woman said, just startled. "I'm always startled by small things now. My son says I shouldn't come to the building alone, but I wanted to see his office and," she stopped. "I'm embarrassing myself." "You're not," Evelyn said, "you got frightened, that's allowed." The woman looked at her. Something in her face softened entirely. "You have kind eyes," she said. "Thank you," Evelyn said. "I'll get you some water, don't move, I'll be right back." She stood. She walked to the reception desk, 30 feet, 40 seconds maximum, and asked for water and a first aid kit. When she turned back, Han So-yeon was crouched beside Madam Kang. Evelyn had noticed her earlier. It was difficult not to notice Han So-yeon. She had the specific, curated beauty of a woman who had made it her professional project, every element deliberate, every movement aware of how it read. Senior executive, third floor. The kind of woman who understood exactly where the power in a room was located and positioned herself accordingly. She was holding Madam Kang's hand. She was saying something that made the older woman nod. Evelyn walked back with the water. She offered it. So-yeon took it, smoothly, naturally, as if continuing a gesture she had begun, and held it to Madam Kang's lips. The doors opened. The air in the lobby changed. Evelyn didn't understand why until she turned and saw him. Kang Tae-jun. She knew the face from the employee briefing materials she had studied the night before, the cold, precise features of a man who appeared in Korean business press, with the specific regularity of someone too powerful to avoid and too private to know. CEO of Vesper Group, 34. Rumored connections that the briefing materials had been carefully vague about. He crossed the lobby in 7 strides. He crouched beside his mother. "Ioma," his voice was different, not the boardroom voice, something younger, stripped of its armor. "Are you hurt?" "I'm fine," Madam Kang said. "This woman saved me, she was right there when I fell." Tae-jun looked up. He was looking at Han So-yeon. So-yeon looked at him. She said nothing. She did not correct him. She did not say, actually it was her. She did not look at Evelyn. She did not move aside or gesture or do any of the small, honest things a person did when they were receiving credit that belonged to someone else. She simply held his gaze. And Evelyn, standing 3 feet away with the empty glass in her hand, first day, badge still stiff. Someone who hated public conflict and assumed truth had a natural tendency to surface, said nothing. Because she told herself it would sort itself out. Because she told herself she would explain later. because she told herself it didn't matter yet. She was wrong on all 3 counts. "Thank you," Tae-jun said to So-yeon, quietly, with the specific rare quality of a man who did not give thanks easily. So-yeon inclined her head. Evelyn walked to the front desk. She returned the glass. She collected her documents package. She took the elevator to her floor. She sat at her new desk and stared at her computer screen and thought, "I'll explain it tomorrow, when the moment is calmer, when it won't cause a scene." Tomorrow became a week. A week became a month. A month became the architecture of her entire life at Vesper Group. And the lie, which had never been her lie to tell or correct, became the foundation of someone else's empire. She saved her, he thanked the wrong woman, and she said nothing. If you're already leaning forward, subscribe right now and hit that notification bell, because this story is about to make you feel things you were not prepared for. 3 weeks later. The Daejeon account should have collapsed on a Thursday. Evelyn discovered the error at 11 p.m., a contract clause that had been misfiled, creating a liability window that the opposing legal team would find by Monday morning if no one moved first. She knew this because she had read the full contract twice, which was not her job, but she had developed the habit of reading everything because she had learned early that the people who understood the whole picture were the people who could see the disaster coming. She fixed it. She pulled the relevant clause, drafted the amendment language, emailed the internal legal team lead with the specific, clear subject line of someone who wanted the message opened at midnight. Urgent, Daejeon liability, action required before Monday. She stayed until 2 a.m. The legal team lead filed the amendment Friday morning. At the Monday executive meeting, Tae-jun received the news that the Daejeon account had been preserved through a late-discovered contractual correction. "Who caught this?" he said. The legal team lead said, "My team flagged it on Friday." Evelyn was in the back of the room taking notes. She did not correct him. She wrote down the action items. She left when the meeting ended. She was in the elevator alone when the doors began to close, and a hand appeared between them. Tae-jun stepped in. He looked at her. She looked at the floor numbers. "You were in the meeting," he said, not a question. "I take the executive notes," she said. "Evelyn Okafor, I started 3 weeks ago." He looked at her with the flat, assessing a tension she was beginning to recognize as simply how he looked at everything. "Okafor," he said. "Yes," she said. The elevator stopped at her floor. She stepped out. The doors closed. She walked to her desk and sat down and stared at her screen. She thought he almost asked. She thought close enough. 3 hours later, she found the card on her desk. Not from Tae-jun. From So-yeon, delivered by So-yeon's personal assistant, a young woman who had the polished efficiency of someone who had learned to disappear while executing. The card said, "I noticed you working late on Thursday. I hope you're settling in well. HSY." Evelyn held the card. She thought about 30 feet, 40 seconds, an empty glass. She put the card in her drawer. She went back to work. Madam Kang came to the building again on a Wednesday. This time she had a driver. This time she was escorted to the executive floor. This time So-yeon appeared within 4 minutes of her arrival, which suggested either extraordinary coincidence or a standing alert that Evelyn chose not to think too carefully about. Evelyn was delivering documents to the 3rd floor when she heard it. Madam Kang's voice through the glass wall of the executive lounge. "The girl who saved me, she had kind eyes. Do you remember, dark brown? She spoke to me very softly." And So-yeon's voice, smooth and warm. "I remember, Madam Kang, I was frightened for you." "Yes," the older woman said. "Yes, you stayed with me." A pause. "Though," Madam Kang said, "I feel like there was someone else before you arrived." "You were in shock," So-yeon said gently. "Trauma distorts memory, it's completely natural." Another pause. "Yes," Madam Kang said, "perhaps." Evelyn stood in the corridor with her documents folder pressed to her chest. She thought, tell her, walk in and tell her. She looked at the glass. At Madam Kang's fragile, uncertain face. At So-yeon's hand covering the older woman's hand. She thought about what it would look like, a junior assistant walking into the executive lounge to contradict a senior executive in front of the CEO's mother. She thought about her probation period. She thought about the specific, exhausting math of being the person in the room who had the most to lose from being disbelieved. She walked past the glass wall. She delivered her documents. She took the stairs back down. She was on the second-floor landing when she heard footsteps behind her. She turned. Tae-jun. He was not following her. He was simply also using the stairs, which she had chosen specifically because CEOs never used the stairs, and yet here he was. The documents were for the Busan file, he said, looking at her folder. Yes, she said. I noticed there were missing signatures on the secondary authorization forms. I had the originals brought up before the filing window closed. He stopped. He looked at her. When did you notice that? He said. This morning, she said. During the pre-filing review, I added it to the tracker. He was quiet for a moment. Nobody else caught that, he said. I read things carefully, she said. He looked at her with the specific, adjusted attention of someone revising a calculation. Evelyn Okafor, he said. Yes, she said. He held her gaze for a moment. Then his phone rang. He answered it. He took the stairs downward without looking back. She stood on the second-floor landing and exhaled. So close, she thought. So close to what? Said the honest part of her. She didn't have an answer for that yet. But she was beginning to understand that it existed. The assassination attempt happened on a Friday. Not a dramatic one, not the kind with visible weapons in visible hands. The kind that was designed to look like an accident, which was how Evelyn recognized it, because she had been watching the wrong things closely enough to notice when something that looked like an accident was happening too precisely. The man who entered the building at 3:47 p.m. had a visitor badge, a clipboard, and the specific, unhurried quality of someone performing ordinariness. She noticed him at the elevator bank. She noticed the way he positioned himself relative to the camera blind spot. She noticed the bulge at his jacket hip that was inconsistent with a clipboard-carrying maintenance visitor. She had no training in any of this. She had pattern recognition and 3 weeks of paying attention to a building's rhythms, because she had nothing else to do between the work that was hers and the work that no one knew was hers. She sent one message to Park Min-seok, Tae-jun's head of security, who she had identified in her first week as the person whose job was to notice exactly this kind of thing. Visitor badge 4471. Elevator bank level 2. Please verify immediately. She then walked, not ran. Walking was less conspicuous, to the corridor between the elevator bank and the executive stairwell, and stood in it. When the man came around the corner, he found her there. He stopped her. She held her documents folder and looked at him with the specific, professional blankness of a woman who was absolutely certain she was supposed to be in this corridor. Maintenance, she said. Electrical check, he said. This floor is occupied, she said. All maintenance requests require a co-escort from facilities management. I'll need to call down. She reached for her phone. He assessed her. She held the assessment with her face completely still and thought about her heart rate, which was not something she could control, and thought about the folder in her hands which she held tighter. Then his earpiece lit up. He heard something she didn't. He turned. He walked back toward the elevator. He left the building at 3:52 p.m. Park Min-seok found Evelyn at her desk at 4 o'clock. He looked at her for a long time. How did you know? He said. Camera blind spots and jacket silhouette, she said. He kept looking at her. Who are you? He said. Evelyn Okafor, she said. Level 3 assistant, I started a month ago. He left without responding. She turned back to her computer. Her hands were shaking slightly. She put them in her lap where no one could see. 20 minutes later, Tae-jun appeared at her desk. He stood there. She looked up. You sent the alert to Min-seok, he said. Yes, she said. Why Min-seok specifically? He's your head of security, she said. It seemed like the appropriate channel. He looked at her. The flat assessing attention had changed quality. It was still flat, still assessing, but something underneath it had shifted. "You're armed," he said. She looked down. The folder edge had cut her forearm when she gripped it, a shallow slice, not serious, but bleeding enough to have soaked into her sleeve without her noticing. "It's fine," she said. "It's not fine," he said. He called a name, someone came with a first aid kit, and Taejun stood at her desk while someone bandaged her arm and he watched, and she thought about how strange it was to be seen. Suddenly, after a month of invisibility, "Thank you," he said. The words were the same ones he had said to So-yeon in the lobby. The same words. But they felt different. She didn't know what to do with that. "I was just paying attention," she said. The rumors about So-yeon and Taejun started in the 5th week. Evelyn heard them the way she heard most things at Vesper Group. Incidentally, because she was always in rooms where conversations happened between people who had forgotten she was there. "He's been having private dinners with her," the HR coordinator said in the break room, not lowering her voice because why would you lower your voice around the quiet Nigerian assistant who never joined conversations anyway? After everything with his mother, she made such an impression on the family. "They'd be a good match," the other woman said. "She understands the world he moves in." Evelyn poured her coffee. She left the break room. She sat at her desk. She thought about a marble staircase and 30 feet and 40 seconds, and the specific weight of an elderly woman's fear in her arms. She thought, this is what silence costs. She thought, say something. She thought, to whom, about what? Actually, I saved her and I've been letting the lie stand for 6 weeks, and then what? She opened the Busan tender documents. She worked. At lunch, So-yeon stopped at her desk. This had started happening, occasional measured check-ins that Evelyn understood were not kindness and were not cruelty, but were something more specific and more calculated. Monitoring. The visits of a woman who needed to know the exact position of the one variable she couldn't fully control. "You've been working late again," So-yeon said. "There's a lot to do," Evelyn said. "Taejun mentioned you," So-yeon said, carefully watching Evelyn's face. "The security incident," Evelyn said. "I reported something I noticed." "He notices things about you," So-yeon said. Evelyn held her gaze. "I'm very good at my job," she said. So-yeon held her gaze in return. "Yes," she said, "you are." She left. Evelyn looked at her screen. She thought about what he notices things about you was designed to do, the specific, surgical cut of it, the invitation to feel seen that arrived pre-poisoned with the reminder of who was actually being seen and why. She opened the Busan documents. She worked. 2 floors above her, Taejun was in a meeting she had scheduled and organized and prepared the briefing materials for, and he was using those materials without knowing whose hands had assembled them, and So-yeon was sitting beside him at the table, and the world continued its arrangement of credit and visibility, and who stood where in the light. Evelyn worked until 8 p.m. She took the subway home. She ate dinner alone. She thought, one more day, I'll say something tomorrow. She had thought this every day for 6 weeks. It was the medicine that almost did it. Madame Kang visited again in the 7th week, this time for lunch with her son. Evelyn was not part of this, not invited, not involved, completely peripheral. But she had learned, in the course of managing Taejun's schedule, that Madame Kang took 3 specific medications at specific times with specific food requirements, and that this information was not in any official schedule, because it was the kind of personal detail that had slipped between the formal and informal layers of his life. She knew it because she had been paying attention. She prepared the tray herself, the right foods, the medications in the correct order, a glass of warm water not cold, because cold water made the anticoagulant absorb incorrectly, and Madame Kang had mentioned this once to her son in a hallway conversation that Evelyn had overheard while delivering files. She brought the tray to the executive dining room. She set it on the table. Madame Kang looked at it. She looked at Evelyn. Something moved in her face, not quite recognition, but the specific interior movement of something trying to surface. "How did you know," Madame Kang said slowly, "about the warm water?" "It was in your son's personal notes," Evelyn said. It wasn't, she had never written it down, she simply remembered. But the lie was reflexive, the same protective instinct that had been directing her since day one. The impulse to make herself smaller rather than explain herself in a room where explanation would require more than she was willing to demand. Madame Kang kept looking at her. "Your eyes," she said. "I'm sorry," Evelyn said. "Kind eyes," Madame Kang said. "I keep thinking." Zioma. Jun had come in. He looked at the tray, at Evelyn, at his mother's face. "The medications," he said. "She brought them correctly," Madame Kang said, "with warm water. Nobody remembers about the warm water except," she stopped, touched her temple. "I get confused sometimes." Jun looked at Evelyn. "How did you know about the medications?" he said. And this was the moment. This was the exact moment where the truth could have come out, not all of it, not the lobby, but the beginning of a thread that led there. He was asking, directly, with the specific, narrowed attention of a man whose intelligence had snagged on something and would not release it until he understood. Evelyn opened her mouth. His phone rang. The ringtone was different, not his regular tone. Something that made him look at the screen with a specific, immediate change in posture. "I have to take this," he said. He stepped into the corridor. The door half closed behind him. Madame Kang looked at Evelyn. Evelyn looked at the older woman. "I remember you," Madame Kang said very quietly. "I do. I'm not confused about you. I'm confused about the other things." "It doesn't matter," Evelyn said. "It does," Madame Kang said. "Madame Kang." "Why won't you tell him?" the older woman said. Evelyn held very still. "It's complicated," she said. "It's simple," Madame Kang said. "You saved me, that's simple." "In this building," Evelyn said, "nothing is simple." Jun came back in. The conversation closed. Evelyn collected the empty tray and left the room and walked to the stairwell, and stood there for a moment with her back against the wall. He was 30 seconds away from asking the right question. She breathed. She went back to work. Park Min-seok found the surveillance footage on a Tuesday. He came to Evelyn's desk at the end of the day. She was the last person on the floor, which was normal for her, and he sat in the chair beside her without asking. She looked at him. "The lobby footage," he said, "from week 1. She held still. "I've been running a background check on everyone who had access to the executive floor during the security incident," he said. "Standard protocol for an attempted breach. In the course of that, I pulled footage from the past 3 months. He held her gaze, including the day Madame Kang fell. She said nothing. "I watched it," he said, "all of it." She looked at her screen. "Then you know," she said. "Yes," he said. She waited. "Why haven't you said anything?" he said. "It didn't seem." "Don't tell me it didn't seem important," he said. Jun has been operating on false information about the most significant personal event in his recent memory. That's not a small thing in this organization. "I know," she said. "Then why?" She looked at him. "Because on my first day," she said, "I had 2 choices. Make a scene about credit that would have made me look calculating and attention-seeking, or let it go and do my job." She held his gaze. "I chose my job." He looked at her for a long time. "I'm going to show him the footage," he said. She nodded. He stood. He walked to the elevator. He pulled out his phone as the doors opened. Evelyn heard him say 2 words before the doors closed. Then she heard nothing. She waited. At 8 p.m. she messaged him, "Did you show him?" At 8:45 he replied, "Footage corrupted. System error between the archived files. Recovery team says it's unrecoverable." She stared at the message. She typed, "How?" He replied, "I don't know yet, but someone knew I was looking." She set her phone face down on the desk. She sat in the empty office with the Seoul skyline behind her, and thought about a woman who had enough access to the company's security systems to delete archived footage before it could be viewed. She thought, "She's been watching me." She thought she knew. She thought, "And I still have nothing." He found her on the rooftop on a Thursday evening. She had started going up there in the evenings sometimes, not to think exactly, but to be somewhere without walls where the weight of the building's internal politics felt slightly less like gravity. Seoul spread out below in its enormous, indifferent light. She heard the door. She turned. Tae-jun. He looked at her with an expression she had not seen on him before, not the CEO face, not the flat assessment. Something rower, less arranged. "I've been looking for you," he said. "I'm not hard to find," she said. "I'm at my desk 12 hours a day." He came to stand beside her at the railing. They looked at the city. "My mother asked about you today," he said. She held still. "She said she keeps seeing your face when she thinks about feeling safe," he said. "She said your name." Evelyn said nothing. "She gets confused sometimes," he said, "about specific things. The neurologist says it's related to the anxiety episodes." He was quiet for a moment, but she was very clear about your name. The city lights moved below them. "Mr. Kang," she said. "Tae-jun," he said. She looked at him. "There are things I should have told you," she said. He turned. He looked at her with the full, complete attention she had been waiting to receive for 2 months. "Tell me," he said. She opened her mouth. The rooftop door opened. "So-yeon." She was holding her phone and she looked at both of them, and her face did something quick and complex that resolved itself into warm concern before anyone could read what had been there first. "Tae-jun," she said, "Min Seok is looking for you. There's a situation with the Incheon account. He says it's urgent." Tae-jun held Evelyn's gaze for 1 moment longer. "Tell me," his face said, still waiting. "It can wait," Evelyn said. It was a lie. It could not wait. But she was watching So-yeon watching her, and she understood with crystalline clarity that whatever she said on this rooftop tonight would be managed, reinterpreted, and redirected before it reached its destination. "Go," she said, "the Incheon account is important." He held her gaze. Then he walked to the door. So-yeon followed him. At the threshold, So-yeon turned and looked at Evelyn 1 more time. Her face said nothing. Her eyes said everything. "I will always be faster than you." The door closed. Evelyn turned back to the city. She gripped the railing. She thought, tomorrow, I will go directly to him tomorrow and I will say every single thing. She thought this with the specific, exhausted determination of a woman who had been saying tomorrow for 9 weeks. The information leak was discovered on a Monday. Sensitive Vesper Group acquisition data had appeared in a competitor's hands, specific enough to have come from someone with internal access, detailed enough to suggest deliberate transmission rather than accident. Tae-jun called a security meeting at noon. Evelyn was not in the meeting. She learned about it at 2 p.m., when Park Min-seok appeared at her desk with the specific expression of a man executing an instruction he had not originated. "We need to discuss your system access," he said. She looked at him. "Specifically," he said, "the files you accessed between Tuesday and Friday of last week." She held still. "I accessed the Busan and Incheon files," she said. "I manage both of those accounts on the executive track. It's in my workflow log." "Those files contain the acquisition data that was leaked," he said. "Half the executive floor has access to those files," she said. "You accessed them on Thursday evening," he said, "after hours alone in the building." She thought about Thursday evening. She thought about the roof. She thought about who else had been in the building Thursday evening. "Min-seok," she said, "you know the lobby footage was deleted, you told me that." "I know what I told you," he said. "I also have a responsibility to this organization that supersedes personal." "Who told you to look at my access logs?" she said. He held her gaze. He didn't answer. Which was an answer. She stood up. She walked to Tae-jun's office. His assistant, the official one, the one with the title, tried to stop her. She walked past. She opened the door. Tae-jun was behind his desk. So-yeon was in the chair across from him. Both of them looked up. "I need 5 minutes," Evelyn said. "This isn't the time," So-yeon started. 5 minutes, Evelyn said to Tae-jun. He looked at her. He looked at So-yeon. "Give us the room," he said. So-yeon stood. She left. She closed the door. Tae-jun looked at Evelyn. The leak, she said, I didn't do it. No one has accused you, he said. Min Seok is auditing my access logs, she said. That's an accusation. He held her gaze. Min Seok audits everyone during an investigation, he said. He came to my desk specifically, she said, before anyone else. Evelyn. Someone deleted footage from the company's security archives 3 weeks ago, she said. Min Seok told me personally. He was going to show you something on that footage and before he could it was erased. She held his gaze. Ask him. He was quiet. What was on the footage, he said. She held her breath. Ask Min Seok, she said, and ask him who else was in the building Thursday evening after hours. Pull the badge access records, all of them. He held her gaze for a long time. Then his phone rang. Not So-yeon this time, not Min Seok. The ringtone that made his posture change. He answered. His face went still in a different way. When, he said, how serious? He looked at Evelyn. My mother, he said, she's been taken to hospital. She resigned at 7 p.m. Not dramatically. She wrote the email herself cleanly in 3 sentences. I am resigning my position effective immediately. My files are organized and transferred. Thank you for the opportunity. She sent it to HR. She cleared her desk. She stood in the empty office for a moment. She thought about 3 months. About midnight filing corrections and security alerts and medication trays with warm water. About a rooftop where she had been 30 seconds from saying everything. She thought about Madame Kang in a hospital. She turned off her desk lamp. She left the building. She did not look back. 2 floors above, Tae-jun was on the phone with the hospital. When he finally ended the call at 8 p.m. and reached for his phone to check messages, he found the notification from HR. He read it. He read it again. He put the phone down. He looked at his office. He had been in this office for 6 years. He knew it completely, the angle of the evening light, the view of the Han River, the specific acoustics that meant he could always hear the corridor through the closed door. For the first time he noticed what the office felt like without Evelyn in the building. It felt like a room where someone had removed something structural. Not decorative. Structural. He thought about the Dejian account, the Busan signatures, the security alert, the medication tray. He thought about his mother saying kind eyes in 4 separate conversations. He thought about a rooftop at dusk, and the specific quality of someone trying to say something that kept getting interrupted. He called Min Seok. The badge access records, he said. Thursday evening, everyone in the building after 7 p.m. A pause. Now, he said. Madame Kang was stable. A stress-induced episode, not serious in the medical sense, but serious in the way of someone whose body had been quietly overwhelmed for a long time and had finally announced it. Evelyn came to the hospital. Not because she was asked, because Madame Kang had said her name and there was no version of herself that could receive that information and stay home. She arrived at 9 p.m. with soup from the place near her apartment, the kind her mother had made when things were difficult, which was an irrational thing to bring to a Korean woman she barely knew, and which she brought anyway because some instincts operated below rationality. Madame Kang was awake. She looked at Evelyn. She said her name correctly, first try. You came, the older woman said. I heard you were here, Evelyn said. Tae-jun didn't call you, Madame Kang said. No, Evelyn said. You came anyway, Madame Kang said. She took the soup. She ate some. She put it down. I need to tell my son something, she said. I've been trying to remember clearly enough to tell him and now I remember clearly. Madame Kang. She didn't catch me, the older woman said. The other woman, she came after, you caught me, you sat with me, you told me to breathe. She held Evelyn's gaze with the specific, unshakable clarity of a person who has sorted through fog and found the solid thing. I know what I know. I may forget other things, I do not forget that. Evelyn held very still. Why didn't you stay and let my son thank you? Madame Kang said. It was my first day, Evelyn said. I didn't want. You were afraid, Madame Kang said, not of conflict, of being seen and then not believed. She held Evelyn's hand. I know that kind of afraid, I've watched it in women my whole life. Evelyn looked at the hospital room. She thought about what she had cost herself. She thought about 3 months of invisibility. She thought enough. The door opened. Tae-jun. He stopped when he saw her. He looked at his mother. His mother looked at him. Come in, Madame Kang said. We were talking about something important. The gala was 2 weeks later. Vesper Group's annual corporate event, 300 people. The Gangnam Grand, chandelier light and champagne, and the specific theatrical formality of an industry that ran on appearances. Evelyn had been asked to attend. Not as staff, Tae-jun had asked her himself at the hospital after the conversation with his mother that Evelyn would not describe to anyone afterward. He had asked simply. No explanation, no ceremony, just come. She came. She was not standing near the front. She was toward the back, in a deep green dress that her mother had always said made her look like she had decided something, which she had. The gala moved through its formal paces. Awards, announcements, the measured, careful theatre of institutional power being publicly maintained. Then Tae-jun stepped to the podium. He began the speech she had helped him draft. She had drafted it, actually, and then told his official speechwriter where to find the draft. And the speechwriter had made minor adjustments and taken the file, and the whole exchange had been absorbed into the building's invisible economy of unacknowledged labor. But the speech he gave was not the one she had drafted. He stopped partway through. He set the papers on the podium. He looked at the room. There's something I need to correct, he said. The room adjusted. Soyeon near the front went completely still. 3 months ago, he said, my mother fell in this company's lobby. I was told and I believed that the woman who caught her stayed with her and kept her calm through a panic attack was a senior executive on my staff. He held the room. That was a lie. The silence in the ballroom was the specific, pressurized kind that happened when 300 people simultaneously stopped breathing. The woman who actually caught my mother, Tae-jun said, is someone I have been working beside for 3 months without understanding what I was seeing. He looked up, looked at the back of the room. Evelyn Okafor. She saved my mother's life on her first day of work. Then she said nothing because she was afraid, with very good reason, that she would not be believed. Evelyn held the back of a chair. She thought, don't cry, not here. She did not cry. She has spent 3 months, he said, quietly fixing crises I didn't know were happening, protecting people who didn't know they needed protection, and doing the work of 3 people while receiving the recognition of none. He held her gaze from across the room. I didn't see her. I should have seen her from the first day. Soyeon stood up. Whether she intended to speak or to leave was something the room never found out, because the movement drew every eye, and in the full attention of 300 people, her face said what words would have been too careful to say. She sat back down. Min Seok appeared at the room's side door. He nodded once at Tae-jun. The badge access records, Tae-jun said, from the evening the security footage was deleted have been reviewed. 1 person was in the building after hours with access to the archive systems. He looked at Soyeon. This will be handled through appropriate channels. The room exhaled. Evelyn stood at the back. She thought about her first day. About 30 feet and 40 seconds, and the choice she had made because she had believed the truth would surface on its own. She thought about what it cost to believe that. Tae-jun stepped away from the podium. He walked toward the back of the room. The crowd moved aside, not deferentially, the way they moved for power, but the way crowds moved for something they recognized as significant and wanted to witness. He stopped in front of her. She looked up at him. He looked at her, really looked, with the specific, unguarded attention she had been waiting 3 months to receive. I owe you more than I know how to calculate, he said. You don't owe me anything, she said. That's what you said about credit, he said, that it didn't matter, that you just needed to do your job. Yes, she said. You were wrong, he said. She held his gaze. Evelyn, he said, I never needed credit, I just needed you to believe me once. Her own words. From the hallway outside the executive lounge on the 7th week, she hadn't realized he had heard them. "I believe you," he said. "I should have believed you from the first day." She thought about everything she had absorbed, everything she had swallowed, every tomorrow that had become another month of invisibility. She thought about Madame Kang's hand on hers in the hospital room. She thought, enough of being quiet. "Don't make me invisible again," she said. "That's all I ask." "Never," he said. He held out his hand. Not a handshake, an offering. She looked at it. She took it. The ballroom was very quiet around them. 300 people who had just watched a correction happen in real time, who had watched a woman emerge from invisibility into the full light of recognition. Not because she had fought for it. Because she had waited and survived and been worthy of it. And because one man had finally, completely seen her. Later, after the lawyers had spoken to So-yeon, after Min-seok had escorted her from the building with the quiet efficiency of a man doing a job he had prepared for, after the room had dissolved into the specific, charged hum of 300 people processing something extraordinary, Tae-jun and Evelyn stood at the edge of the balcony. The Han River below, Seoul above, the city doing its endless indifferent thing. She admitted it, he said. In writing, before the lawyers arrived, she admitted everything. "I know," Evelyn said. "You knew she would," he said. "I knew she would eventually," she said. "I didn't know when eventually would be." He looked at her. "What would you have done," he said, "if this had never come out, if my mother had never remembered clearly enough?" She held the railing. She thought about it honestly. "I would have left," she said, "at some point, not in anger, just some things are too heavy to carry indefinitely." She looked at the river. "I was getting close to that point." "The resignation," he said. "Yes," she said. He was quiet. "I almost lost you," he said, "before I'd even found you." She looked at him. "Tae-jun," she said. "Yes," he said. "I need you to understand something," she said. "I am not a quiet person by nature. I became quiet in this building because quiet felt like the only safe option. She stopped. "If this continues in any direction, I need you to know that I will say things. I will tell you when something is wrong. I will not absorb things silently and call it strength." He held her gaze. "Good," he said. "Good," she said. "I don't need quiet," he said. "I need honest. I've been surrounded by quiet for years." He held her gaze. "It's the most isolating thing I've ever experienced." She looked at him. She thought about Madame Kang in the hospital, eating soup that tasted like someone's mother had made it, saying, "You came anyway." She thought about what it meant to be chosen not because you were useful, but because you showed up. "Ask me," she said. "What?" he said. "Whatever you want to ask me," she said. "No interruptions, no emergencies, no one at the door, ask." He held her gaze. And for the first time in the story of these two people, for the first time since a marble staircase and an empty glass and a choice made in the space of 30 seconds, Kang Tae-jun asked the question without a phone ringing, without a door opening, without the world inserting itself between the moment and its answer. He asked. She answered. They stood at the edge of the balcony while Seoul moved below them, and 3 months of being invisible became the foundation of something that would not be invisible at all. Outside, Madame Kang, seated at the front table with a cup of tea that someone had made correctly, warm water, right medications, exactly as she liked it, watched the glass doors to the balcony. She thought, "I knew it was her." She had always known. The kind eyes had told her everything from the first moment. She sipped her tea. She thought, "I just had to wait long enough for him to see it too." Some things could not be rushed. They could only be survived until they became true. 3 months, 1 ballroom, 1 moment of finally being seen. If this story kept you here until the end, if every almost made you want to scream, you already know what to do. Like this video immediately. Subscribe right now. Drop your comment which scene broke you. The rooftop, the resignation, the gala, tell me. New story next week. Same promise, impossible to stop. I'll see you there.